Well, hello there. How you doing? It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a little bit. We have a new moon coming up in Pisces, and this one is really interesting. It's exciting. It has so much going on, and this is the last new moon before the eclipses start happening. So this is a kind of moment of rebirth. It's a liminal space, a pulling back or a retreat in some way to understand something really important in your life. Now, not only is it a new moon, but there are pretty much three things going on. There's Mercury ingressing into Aries on the same day, the new moon in Pisces, and Mars is squaring Uranus just a little bit before that. So it's into this entire thing. It's all ingrained together and meshed together. And it's sort of like a trinity. We're going to go straight to the Sabian symbol right away because it's going to help us build this entire metaphor, which I think could be really helpful. The new moon happens on March 10th at Pisces 20 degrees 16 seconds, which puts us up to the Sabian symbol 21 Pisces, and that is a little white lamb, child, and Chinese servant. Suspend judgment on this for a second because it's metaphorical, and we're going to be able to find some really interesting things within each of those, the lamb, the child, and the Chinese servant. These Sabian symbols are up for interpretation. You don't have to take James Burgess or anybody else's word for it, my word for it, whatever. You can use your own mind and think about it. What James Burgess said, I'm going to share what he said, and then Emmy Owens is another person. We'll do those two commentaries quickly. And then a third version, which is what I think is aligning with these astrological aspects coming through. James Burgess thinks this is a training in optimism. The pleasures of a soft touch and a simple smile are powerful agencies through which we learn optimism. That's kind of where he's coming in. He's talking about practicing and demonstrating an innocence of being. That's the lamb and the child. Now, he says, before the mind gets involved in analysis and formulation of ideas, there's often a feeling sense of what's unfolding, feeling it first. As we bring the mental aspect to bear upon our feelings, then what was single gets polarized, and in that moment, we opt for this or that. Some opt for hope, some opt for resignation, some are optimistic, and some are fearful. The child becomes more likely to expect and choose hope and joy because she's been properly trained in a skill by good parenting. This, we can pull a few little nuggets out of it, I think, that are really, really beautiful. The polarization, the option of hope versus resignation, optimism over fear, that's nice. But I think there's more to it than just a training in optimism, much more. Now, the commentary from Emmy Owens. She says, the triple aspect of animal, youth, and wisdom, seen as random and disorderly unless personal gifts and skills are applied to create an interconnectedness between the trio. So she's basically saying that there's not an obvious connection between the animal, the child, and the wisdom. I'm going to disagree with her in a minute. But anyway, let's hear what she says. The animal, which is its own nature and nothing more, the child, innocent and optimistic in youth, and the Chinese servant, wise from age and experience. Not a progression of spiritual evolution, but perhaps a more triangular relationship of the three concepts commingling to create a reason for optimism and innocence. The lamb, the choice to take this path, the child, and the wisdom to see the value in it, the Chinese servant. Okay, so now we've set that scene. We've got Burgess, who says this is an optimistic thing. It's a polarization choice where you can choose fear or hope. Good. Emmy Owens brings in this concept of the triad, the triangle, that they're not in an inner flow, but they're three different things. Okay, I like to take that from Emmy Owens. Now, just keep those three things in mind. The lamb, the child, and the Chinese servant, which is an older person, apparently. Along with this new moon, we have the ingress of Mercury into Aries. Okay, Aries is the sign of the ram. And of course, a baby sheep is a lamb. Mercury is the mind, and it's indicating a progressive way of thinking when it's going into Aries. It's taking action. It's not just taking action and being bold, but being a lamb, being a beginner, being humble, being in a place where you have this courage and drive, but also you're starting something new, especially related to your thinking, your speaking, your learning. It's an interface of communication anytime Mercury's ignited. And there's a lot of potential to grow because the lamb, which will become the ram, is baby. It's young, it's new. It's going to become powerful, but it has to start off with that beautiful place of innocence and purity and humility of beginner mind. In general, a lamb represents hope and triumph over adversity. But it's also known as a sacrificial creature. A lot of times that was the animal that got sacrificed to the god, was the lamb. And, you know, there's a relationship to Christ as the Lamb of God because he was sacrificed. And it may mean that there's something you need to sacrifice in this situation with Mercury and Aries, thinking of not being such a bold ram already, but maybe some part of your ego needs to be quieted to say, okay, I don't know everything. I'm going to come into this courageously, but I'm also going to be humble to get the most out of it, you know, and the experience you're going into. Mercury's been in its fall and its exile in Pisces. It's the only planet that does that. I've mentioned it before. It's the only one because in Virgo, it's exalted and, you know, it's also in domicile. So it's a time of Mercury kind of being in this abstract, weird place, confusion, not as clear, a little bit lost in the land of dreams, the subconscious and unconscious, et cetera, et cetera. And you may have had some lack of clarity over the last like 3 weeks, but when Mercury moves into Aries, which is the 10th of March, it's the same time as the new moon. Some of those ideas and dreams and thoughts, or the subconscious, the imaginative explorations that you were having when Mercury was in Pisces, can come to a point where you're like, oh, I see the path. That's what I'm supposed to do with those ideas, or that's what I'm supposed to do with this imaginative, creative space, this thing I've been thinking about. Those ideals, they're going to be able to be pushing forward with Mercury and Aries. Now we got to get used to Mercury and Aries because it's going to be there for a long time. Mercury's going to retrograde there and it's going to station direct on April 25th. So from March 10th to April 25th, that's a long time for Mercury to be in Aries. Usually it's in a sign for about 3 weeks, and unless it retrogrades, then it's there for about 6 weeks. And so that just means this assertive communication, this direct, more confident communication is coming through, and keeping in mind the image of the lamb this whole entire time. The ruler of Aries is Mars, and Mars is in Aquarius. That's going to be bringing in a more detached, more measured, rational version of Mars. And it's not hot-headed, it's not confrontational. So Mercury in Aries sometimes can be snappy, you know, angry, just lashing out with words. But Mars being in Aquarius, it's more careful, it's more considerate, it's more thoughtful, but it's also in a place of rebellion and doing things in a way that is leaning towards independence and freedom. So ultimately, it could be bringing up some of those urges to talk about those things like independence, freedom, and it could come through in a breakthrough moment or an aha moment. Okay, part 2. The new moon is in Pisces. This is the child. Every time I say the child, I think of I think of Grogu.
Come on, baby. Do the magic hand thing.
Cute little guy. The child is loving on this baby lamb. And there's an interrelationship, that means, between the new moon in Pisces and Mercury in Aries during this ingress, because they're happening at the same time. So these ideas and dreams from Pisces, they're still in a communication with Mercury here. The connection's not broken. It's just almost strengthened. It's almost like, okay, here's your bag of the stuff that we've put together. Here's your little magic bag. And here, take it. Take it in Messenger into Aries, and let's do something with it. The main aspect this new moon is making is a sextile to Uranus. This is really, really nice. Okay, I'll tell you why. Uranus is the change maker, it's the rebellious, it's the genius archetype. And currently, it's also in a square with Mars, which is, you know, a little dicey. But with this sextile, it's adding a really nice, good energy and aspect to clarifying. It's stimulating, it's exciting, it's dynamic. It's not just square friction. Everything in astrology is usually like this. There's just so much nuance to it. That's why it's never just the same. That's why sun sign astrology, you know, it doesn't really do the trick. There's so much going on that you can just keep unraveling. Ren Butler and the Archetypal Universe is such a good book. I mean, everybody references it just because it's brilliant. But he says the Sun, Moon, Uranus positive combination, it indicates a brilliant, exciting vitality, creative freedom, originality, natural spontaneity, aliveness, radiant enthusiasm for life. All that sounds really, really good, stimulating, sextile. So that can be coming through with some imagination, some newness, the spiritual, dreamlike Pisces realm coming into materialization in Taurus. It's the most earthy material sign that there is. to make something happen, to make something realized in a unique or unexpected way because it's Uranus.
Stop touching things.
The third part to our triad is the Chinese servant. Mars square Uranus, Mars coming from Aquarius, Uranus and Taurus. That's the adult in the triad. And this Chinese servant is seen as wise and experienced, but there's also some dynamics here because he's a servant, you know, and that could be triggering this anger or a desire for rebellion or not wanting to be a servant anymore, not wanting to be held back or conditioned or silenced in a way. A feeling of defiance and a wanting of independence. That's that square friction. Like, I want this. I don't want to be held back anymore. I'm ready to fight for that. And the key to that energy is to respect that desire. It's valid. It can get hard to be a servant and wanting to rebel or be something different, but also to consider wisdom. And the wisdom that this person has inside of them is to know through experience that the rebellion and change can be rational, it can be materialized, and not through burning bridges. Mars is in Aquarius, so it's possible. This square is not as feisty, I think, and Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. So I think there's some interchange there. It's not just a rough energy. A square is dynamic. It's going to cause some friction, and that combination of Mars and Uranus in an earth sign, it's one of ideas versus reality, your thoughts versus your physical embodied experience. And so sometimes those things aren't aligned in the square energy. Like, you want to do something in your mind, but your body won't do it. You have to be a beginner. You can't just go straight to, what is that thing in Monopoly? You know, go around the board and pass go, collect $200. You have to go to the beginning and start fresh. So Ren Butler says this about the dynamic frictional Mars energy square, that these are some of the things that can bring tendencies towards excessive self-will, contention, obstinacy, irritability, impatience, desire for sudden change. Let's do it. Let's go. Come on. Sporadic, unfocused output, high flying contempt for the mediocre. I think that was my favorite one. High flying contempt for the mediocre. Don't be mediocre in my presence. It's contemptible. Anyway, the ideals of martial glamour, you know, fighting, war, the knight in shining armor, I can save everybody, I can do it. Or the urge to fight for something without really thinking of the physical, you know, ramifications. Just the idea and the physical thing happening, they might just not match up. So, and the bonus thing that's going on is Chiron and the North Node are still in a tight conjunction. I think they're 17 Aries together. So Mercury coming into Aries, the Lamb, it might be entering a party of very deep catharsis, a mind party of something that's ready for change, big time healing, a desire to move forward with whatever house topic your Aries is, you know. I covered that in another video, the whole sign house where you have Aries, that North Node and Chiron conjunction together. If you want to know more about that, that's kind of what's going to be on your mind. It's going to be thematic throughout this entire time, especially with the retrograde of Mercury and Aries. So I'll link that in the description below if you are interested in that. So we get to this point in the video, I can just talk to you because, well, whoever wanted to hear astrology is done listening to that. Anyway, if you want to hear it, you might notice this in the background. I put a little something that is a little more interesting than just cabinets that are in progress of being created. The room is changing, and so we're still in process. Who knows how long it's going to take. It's been Mercury and Pisces style. It's like, whoa, what's going on? When is it going to happen? I don't know, man. Anyway, Mercury and Aries, hopefully it's continuing to move forward. We had my brother's wedding over the weekend. It was so much fun. Oops, feed the animals. I gotta figure out how to put this thing on quiet mode. I don't know. I'm wearing this different watch today. It's annoying when it talks to me and I don't want it to. Do not disturb. Do not disturb. Did it. Yay. No, but I've been exercising more. I've been walking around and stuff like that. And so I wear this watch to kind of keep track of that stuff. Otherwise, it's annoying, though. These smartwatches, they're not really my favorite. But anyway, I digress. what I want to tell you again. This is what I wanted to tell you. If you had anything significant happen over this past weekend, that was the Venus-Uranus square. So the reason I wanted to mention that is if something happened that you're like, whoa, what in the world? That was weird or that was wild. Especially to do with relationships and surprises, unexpected things like, whoa, that came out of nowhere. Well, then this Mars Uranus thing, it might be a little bit, it'll be similar. It'll be like, it'll probably hit you again. But like I said, it's not in a way that's going to be super negative, I don't think, because we have this sextile to the new moon. So that's really good news for me. Oh, last weekend. Last weekend was a wild one. My brother got married, which was lovely. That was not the Venus Uranus square, but there was something that happened at the wedding, like that was so Venus Uranus square. It was textbook. It was just relational, relational surprise, something coming up from the past and making a problem in a relationship. And so I had to be very, very strong and tell somebody that I love that they cannot do that anymore. They can't say those things. They can't bring up things from the past ever again. And that's it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see that. I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want it to come up ever, ever again. And it was a hard conversation to have. And in the past, I probably wouldn't have, but not anymore. If you ever have that feeling, where somebody's keeping you in a hole of the past and you don't want to do that anymore, you are totally empowered to tell them to stop in a kind way. But it probably won't go over well. It didn't go over well for me, but I know now that's never coming up again. And that's worth it. It's worth it. I'm telling you, man. I don't want to hear that stuff anymore. Anyway, I like you just the way you are, and I hope you're doing well. It's been a while to get back on this video thing, but like I said, I was having some issues with that Mercury in Pisces. Anyway, I like you just the way you are, and I will talk to you soon. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.